Great. Thanks, Mark. So, listen, thanks everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for your time this afternoon, and thanks for attending our webinar. My name's Paul Brett, and I'm responsible for Kubrow's business in the UK, Ireland, and the Middle East. I'm joined today by Eric van der Noort, who's the SE manager actually now for EMEA North at ExtraHop, and by Herbert Ecklinger, who's our Kubrow's head of product and solution engineering. The purpose of the webinar today is to describe to you how, as technology partners, Kubrow and ExtraHop together can help you to improve your network security posture while reducing costs. In broad terms, Kubrow's products deliver optimized network traffic data feeds to ExtraHop products, and the ExtraHop products are able to analyze those data feeds and identify security issues. In terms of agenda, I'll start in a second or two and just introduce you to Kubrow and give you a high-level view of the value that we provide. Eric will then introduce ExtraHop and again the summary of the value that the ExtraHop solutions provide, and then sort of bringing those together, Herbert will then cover a joint deployment case study which will illustrate the value that we deliver together in a specific use case environment. Before we start though, actually, I think maybe just to add a little bit more context to what I've just mentioned here, and why this subject, improving network security posture and reducing costs, is important and relevant. I have a couple of questions actually, Eric, which I think the answers to which would probably add that context. Can you maybe explain what's changed in the cybersecurity landscape and why this collaboration between Kubrow and ExtraHop is so beneficial for companies?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. And so what you see is that in cybersecurity, things just change, right? And when you look at the business case of cyber criminals, that is a really good business case. They're not in $1 million business industry, but in $1 billion industry. So what they've now done is, let me just recap. So during time, right, what they've seen is that their business case has been hurting by firewalls. They bypassed that, right? So they got rid of that. Now there's logs to get insights internally, but also EDR, and that really hurts their business case. So they've really focused on disabling that. And when that happens, and by the way, they're really successful with that, when that happens, an organization goes completely blind to what happens, right? When you disable logs in EDR, there's no visibility anymore. And that means like things like ransomware just go through the organization without being noticed. Now there's one source which is really rich in data that you don't need any agents for, which gives you full, and you can see the activity of cyber criminals, and that's the network. You use the network as a data source.
And could you explain maybe a little bit more about how ExtraHop uses that network data to detect attacks, and why Kubrow plays an important role in that?
Yeah, so ExtraHop, how it works, and we have a product called RevealX, which passively listens into that data, and we look for signatures, but most important, we use machine learning, artificial intelligence to look at behavior on the network, right? But to do so, we need a reliable data feed to do detections. Now, Kubrow helps us in getting that data feed by combining different sources, right, from within their organization to give us one feed. You guys deduplicate the data for us, and if needed, filter. So we get one high quality feed to do our detections on.
And that's a really interesting point, actually, because I mean, sometimes, obviously, some customers say, well, couldn't they just use span ports? So couldn't a span port on a switch accomplish the same?
Yeah. So I would say no, and I'll explain why. Because although the switch can also provide that data feed, right, the main goal of a switch, or the main role of a switch, is switching. And if the switch becomes really busy, right, it will drop that span functionality, which means you don't get the data, right? So now imagine you get attacked on the network, right? And the switch is now really busy because there's some sort of denial of service attack, right? when the switch gets busy, it drops that data feed. And exactly at the moment when you need that data feed the most, you don't have it anymore. So I would say having a packet broker like Kubrow get that data feed is really key to be able to see all these things.
Because I guess, yes, what that's introducing, isn't it, that those drop packets are blind spots
Yeah,
effectively.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You go blind at the moment that you need it the most.
Yeah, for sure. But thanks for that, Eric. I think that adds just a little bit more context around, I think, what the value of the session today is. Just to move through start moving through the agenda then. So I'll just spend a few minutes and introduce Kubrow to everybody for those that don't know us. So we are a manufacturer and leading supplier globally of network visibility solutions, and our products include network taps, network packet brokers, probes, and bypass switches. And as I mentioned previously, in broad terms, what our technology does as part of our partnership with ExtraHop is to provide optimized data feeds generated from the network traffic, which we then pass to the ExtraHop products for analysis and identification of security problems. We'll come back to that in just a second, but just some, I guess, some the size and shape of our organization. According to Omdia, we are number 5 by global market share. We're number 3 in EMEA and number 2 in Asia Pac. We're still a privately owned company, and interestingly, we're a European company. Most of our competitors are US headquartered, but we are European headquartered in Vienna, and we have offices in Japan, Singapore, Vienna, of course, Graz, and the US. So what do we do? So again, in broad terms, what our technology does is to connect to network connections. We then observe all traffic crossing across the network. We duplicate or copy the traffic that needs to be analyzed by the ExtraHop products. The network tap that connects to the network then passes that traffic to network packet broker, which is a switching intelligent device, and it's the network packet broker that carries out the optimization. And there's a whole range of different capabilities, but again, in broad terms, we're able to aggregate traffic from multiple inputs to a smaller number of outputs. We're able to filter out traffic that either is uninteresting or shouldn't be analyzed. We can do things like deduplication, as Eric had mentioned earlier as well. And then we're able to then, with that optimized duplicated traffic, we then push that out as a data feed to the ExtraHop product. The high-level use cases actually were the original drivers for the development of this type of technology, of network visibility technology, was, as mentioned there, was to remove blind spots, reduce traffic loading, and improve business continuity. And what we mean by that is that we are able to guarantee we can deliver all of the traffic to the ExtraHop products. So we copy everything that's relevant and we push that out. We optimize and push that out. Because we can filter out traffic and deduplicate, we can reduce the loading on the ExtraHop products as well. And we can also remove single points of failure in the network security architecture, because we're able to load balance across multiple ExtraHop products, and we also have capabilities of inline bypass and so on. So if you sort of bring those all together, you can think of us really as the plumbing that delivers the network traffic data feeds to the ExtraHop products. And that's particularly and becoming more relevant actually when you look at those range of IT initiatives across the middle of the screen there. Those really are what we see going on in the market today, where most organizations are carrying out one or a number of those IT initiatives, and each one of those introduce new incremental blind spots. So our technology is becoming more mandatory for the successful outcomes of those initiatives. Again, in terms of products, we're very innovative as a company. We have innovative leading edge solutions across a range of products, from very low cost, low entry to high scale data center and service provider performance products. Very easy to deploy, implement, and operate. And because of our price point, we're typically sort of 30 to 50% lower cost of ownership compared to our major competitors. We typically provide the best features to price ratio in the market. So we'd like to think our customers get more for their money effectively. So that's a very high level description of what we do. This is really a high level illustration of how our technology deploys. And if you look at the bottom there, the arrows pointing down to the tool sets, that would really represent the data feeds that we generate that are passed to the ExtraHop solution. But how we generate that, if you go back to the top of the slide, the top blue box, that shows a range of different application types from mobile, Internet of Things, multimedia, big data. Those will be generated either via a physical data center or some type of virtual or cloud type environment. We're able to duplicate the traffic out of both of those types of environments in a physical environment using taps or span ports if necessary. And then obviously in the virtual and cloud world using typically virtual taps, or with most of the, or certainly some of the public cloud providers, they offer that capability as a service. So we're able then to duplicate that traffic, pull it into our solution, and then we optimize that traffic using one or a number of those types of features just shown there on the left. And then that optimized data feed is pushed out to the ExtraHop solution. As I say, it's an illustration really. Probably in practice, we would be a little bit more geographically dispersed than that, but the principles remain the same. Another capability that we have that's worth mentioning today, I think, because it's along the same lines, is we have a unique capability called NetFlow Optimizer, which is able to optimize metadata feeds. So again, here looking from left to right, we're able to input multiple metadata inputs, whether that's generated by Kubrow products, so NetFlow IPFix generated by Kubrow products or other sources. We can also actually take in public cloud logs as well. We can then enrich that data and then optimize it. So effectively reduce the quantity whilst retaining all of the valuable information. And then we push it out as a data feed to the devices in the box on the right there. That would include ExtraHop. It could include SIEM products. It could include other monitoring products that require metadata for their use cases. So that's another capability that we have. So what's the value then of what the Kubrow network visibility technology delivers as part of the overall combined Kubrow ExtraHop solution? So the first point is we're able to help increase the network security posture, the network performance, and compliance. Because we remove network blind spots, that means that the ExtraHop solution will receive all of the traffic it needs to analyze. We can remove single points of failure because of load balancing and bypass. And as I mentioned, that gives us better business continuity. We can help to accelerate the time for ExtraHop products to identify security threats because it doesn't have to analyze as much traffic because we remove traffic that has no value by filtering or through deduplication. And finally, we can help to ensure the compliance of the ExtraHop solution because we can filter out data that may be confidential, that should not be analyzed. We can guarantee delivery of all the traffic to the sensors, including up to the granularity of the raw packets themselves that can then be stored by the ExtraHop solution for later analysis or proof of breach and breach extent. Second key point, we can help to reduce CapEx and OpEx, and we can help to accelerate the time to value. And that's probably the point to start at. The reason we can help to accelerate the time to deployment is what we often see with network security deployments is that customers find that they either don't have a data feed or don't have the right type of data feed, or providing data feeds compromises the performance of the network infrastructure. So that can often delay the deployment of the network security device. So by working together, ExtraHop and Kubrow, we deliver the data feeds at the same time, which prevents the delay of that deployment and accelerates the time to deployment and the time to the benefit and value of the ExtraHop solution for the customer. And because of, as I mentioned already, we reduce the traffic loading through aggregation, filtering, deduplication, and so on. We can reduce the loading on the ExtraHop solution, which helps to right-size it technically, which in turn helps to right-size it from a commercial point of view, from both CapEx and OpEx, increase the return on investment, and of course, it helps to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the ExtraHop solution. Last 2 points from me really is that, again, for budget, that's always a very important point because of our price point that I mentioned before. Typically what we find, the same budget is used for both the ExtraHop solution and the network visibility solution. But with our price point, it means that more compared to working with other solutions, that more budget is available for the ExtraHop and the security solution out of the whole budget. The final point is that, again, within the Kubrow products use latest technology, ASICs, which gives us some feature advantages and reduces the requirement for CPU processing power and so on. And because of our aggregation and filtering capability, it helps us to reduce the footprint required of the security solution, which helps in turn, obviously, then to reduce power requirements, cooling, and space consumption as well. So that's everything from me that I was going to cover in terms of introducing Kubrow. Eric, maybe if I can ask you to pick up from here and introduce ExtraHop.
Thank you very much. So before, we already talked about what the risks are. And what you see is that, again, right, EDR logs, they can be disabled. So just set the stage a little bit of where we fit in, right? We look at the network traffic, right? But the whole point is, if you look at that triad, right, where you see SIEM, EDR, and ExtraHop NDR in there, that's a SOC visibility triad. That's something Gartner says, if you want to get full visibility in your environment, this is what you need. Now, SIEM, EDR, right, they can be disabled. Doesn't mean that they're bad, but we need to accept the fact that there are some vulnerabilities there that they might be disabled. So having NDR really becomes a must-have. And the advantage is that by looking at the network traffic, just getting that copy of the network traffic, you have the ground truth of exactly what happens. Because we just listen in, it's covert, right? Agentless, so nobody sees that we're listening in, right? So it's really difficult to evade for the cyber criminals. That means that if you don't have a solution like ExtraHop, you have this intelligence gap. Now, why do you have that, right? We already told you that there's they try to evade your defense by disabling EDR and SIEM, but next to that, they have also started focusing on devices that are unmanaged, right? Like IoT devices, like VPN service, Citrix service, MRI scanners, right? All these things that typically don't have an EDR agent on it or logging, they try to focus on that as well, next to disabling EDR to get in. Now, you might say that most of your traffic internally encrypted, and as you can see, the number there says 67%, can be different for every organization, but the whole point is that at a certain point, you want to get visibility also in the encrypted traffic. If it's encrypted, there's an intelligence gap, right? We can do the detections based on encrypted traffic, but it's even better if you decrypt it and you're able to look inside of it to see what is going on to be able to better detections. We can do that based on TLS SSL traffic, also with PFS and with TLS 1.3, we can decrypt that. And we can also integrate with a domain controller to look inside of that domain traffic. For instance, SMP version 3, where Print Nightmare really loved that fact that it was encrypted and you couldn't see what they were doing. Being able to decrypt that gives you back that visibility. Now, what can we then do? So if you look at from the initial intrusion to the breach, if you look at the typical attack, that when that initial intrusion happens, the hacker wants to keep a foothold, right? Maybe they use a vulnerability. If you now fix that vulnerability by updating system, they lose control, right? So they don't want that. So they build a command and control session via HTTP or via DNS. Doesn't really matter, right? But that's the first thing that we'll detect. We'll detect that based on the behavior of that device on a network, that it never did that before. Now, the second thing is they don't know anything about that environment. So they start doing scans on the network, right? So let's say TCP SYN scan, or maybe a domain enumeration where they want to see all the file shares, or what kind of domains are. So a lot of scanning where you get multiple detections. Now you're still in the early stages of an attack, right? Here you can act and stop them so that they cannot go any further, right? You can integrate with a firewall by directly killing that command and control session. You don't have access anymore. Next thing, they might do lateral movements, data staging, a lot of these things that they do all early. It's until the point that they do data exfiltration and start exfiltrating your data that you're pretty much too late, because then you need, if it's ransomware, then you need to pay the ransom, right? And there's no way going back. Now, I have two examples. Victim number one, the top one, is Colonial Pipeline. This is a publicly disclosed breach. This is not an ExtraHop customer. Victim number two is a ExtraHop customer, also was hit with ransomware. So if you now look at victim number one, right, Colonial Pipeline, they have had several or multiple, systems that should have detected that, but it didn't, right? It got evaded. So all the ransomware evaded the EDR, SIEM, firewall, nothing detected that until the point that it was too late. And this, by the way, can happen with supply chain attacks and nation states doing advanced attacks, right? The point is you want to detect in the United States so it doesn't come to the point like with Colonial Pipeline. Now, unfortunately, for Colonial Pipeline, they had no idea what these attackers exactly did. They knew they came in via the IT environment, but they didn't know if they touched the OT environment, which was pretty much isolated, but there were some gaps there to communicate with it. So as a precaution, they took down the pipeline, which was their main business there, right? Pumping oil back and forth. It was down for 5 days. You can imagine the impact that it had to their business. But keep in mind, right, it's not just the ransom you need to pay and the fact that you're down, it's the remediation, it's reputation damage. There's a lot of things that come with that. So it was a big impact for this not customer, but this company. So victim number two is a customer of ours. It's a leading home improvement company in the US. You can pretty much guess which one it is then. From the initial intrusion, right, there was this command and control session that we detected on. Then we saw scans. In this case, they use Bloodhound to scan. They do a lot of enumeration against the domain controller. We detected that. Now, some ransomware goes really fast in your network, right? Some just wait a couple of days until they activate it. This one was really fast. It started encrypting that client, that victim directly, but it also did some of the scans and also tried to do the data staging, right? Still stages where you can stop it because there's no data being extracted. They stopped it in time because only less than 20,000 files were encrypted. And this is a massive company. So they have millions of files, right? So it's a small portion, and only the portion of that infected device got encrypted. They could put that to the backup files, they had those. There was no data exfiltrated. They had full visibility of what happened so they could just go and do their business again. That is what you're trying to accomplish. See them in the early stages of an attack without using any agents to be able to stop them before it hurts. Now, the last part I want to show you is how the solution works, right? For us, the main thing is we get a data feed. If it's in the cloud, in Google, AWS, or Microsoft Azure, doesn't matter. We need a data feed. Can be from your data center, where Kubrow provides us with that data feed, or a remote location, but we need that data to start analyzing the traffic. Now, one of the biggest advantages is not only that we do the detections based on AI, which you can detect the unknown attacks, but also the fact that we keep that data for 90 days. We call these the records. Those records are stored for 90 days. That means that you have more or less sort of a video recorder of the network, right? If you get attacked, they get in, you stop them in time, you're able to go back in time to see, hey, we detected that, but I just want to make sure, what did they touch? Did they touch other system? Did they install some malware on another system that we haven't figured out yet, right? So you have a way to investigate. It's not guessing what happened, it's knowing what happened. That is a big advantage. And we can also store raw packets if needed. So you'll get one view of the complete environment, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, or maybe only on-prem, but you have one view of your whole security environment. That is what I wanted to show you, and I'll give it back to Paul to continue.
Great, thanks, Eric. Really interesting stuff. Well, I'm just waiting for the slides to come up. I should mention as well, actually, that if anybody has any questions, please feel free to raise those in the chat. We've also got polls that are there. We'd appreciate your feedback on, and obviously any handouts that are interesting to you as well. So we're sort of into the final part now, and really the meat, I guess, of the discussion, which is just to explain to you how the Kubrow and the ExtraHop technology and the values and the benefits that we bring are combined in an actual deployment. And Herbert will be covering this for us in just a second. I'll just talk a little bit about, introduce the customer and the benefits of the solution, and then Herbert will go into the detail of the solution itself. So as we mentioned already, it's a large German financial organization, one of the largest there, and they'd recognized that they had security vulnerabilities and they wanted to improve their network security posture, but at the same time they have to do that obviously and achieve and maintain regulatory compliance. And they particularly had concerns around east-west traffic. And of course, fundamentally, what this is all about is to prevent breach and prevent serious financial and reputational damage. So those were the drivers and the operational drivers. And hopefully, as I say, this demonstrates the value of the integrated solution. In terms of the benefits, therefore, we were able to meet their challenges. So we were able to provide them with comprehensive visibility in both the north-south and the east-west traffic corridors, and without blind spots. So we're able to make sure that they got access or were able to analyze all of the network traffic. We're able to provide them with early detection of potential attacks, obviously to again help to prevent breaches and the damage forthcoming from that. In addition to that, of course, they were able to record all of their communications and store data and raw packets and so on for compliance and for proof of breach extent. And the last 2 points, I guess, what they realized from this as well was that we were able to deliver a very high value solution at very low risk because we are joint technology partners with proven interoperability and proven integration. It was a very low risk deployment for them. And finally, again, what they would see, and hopefully what you'll see from this, is it was a very cost-effective approach, very simplified approach, and an uncomplicated solution. And that's probably a good point then to hand over to Herbert to describe to you what the solution actually was.
Right, thanks, Paul. Yes, so Herbert here. So I will share my screen. Give me a second. So here we are. It's coming up here. Yes, so in the next couple of minutes, just try to explain to you about the setup we have, so about the Kubrow solution, actually what are the parts and why we have them there. And solution actually is organized in two-step approach, and the first step is already implemented, and actually what we have running now is 4 productive sites and the same also for the lab. And just as an overview is what we have. So let me go there. Here we are. Is what customer has is we have 16 times 10 gig links. So this is links, which there's an existing optical tapping. So optical tapping, that gives you a one-to-one copy. So that's a good point already, as we have heard from Eric before. So we get a copy of that network traffic, and meaning we're getting some 10 gig traffic into our solution. And that solution is then consisting of some different steps. And the first step, what we are doing is, honestly speaking, doesn't sound very sexy, to be honest, I call it a media and connector adaptation layer. I mean, it's a very passive solution, but this makes sure that actually we have a defined access point into our solution. It's very useful for troubleshooting. I'll explain a little bit later on in more detail. So what we are doing actually, we're taking some connectors in. We are not changing anything in the packet, but we just maybe combine connectors, change the media, amplify the signal and things like this. So what we finally do is, out of the 10 gig, we are making 40 gig connectors. And then we go off one of the key parts of our solution is the packet broker. And this packet broker does some aggregation, means has many inputs, but not so much outputs. So we are putting together the data, so of reducing the number of ports, so to say. Also, we do filtering there, as we have heard. That's maybe important because not everything has to be forwarded to ExtraHop because it's meaningless and just would overload that or create unnecessary load. And we have another layer, the blue one at the end. This is also a packet broker, but more advanced with some more capabilities in higher layers. So for example, we find duplicates. Okay, duplicates, but duplicate in terms of payload. So not only that the headers are the same or packet IP addresses, MAC or whatever, but even in the payload. And when we find a double, we delete that. And here from this box, we have the first output, because this is what customer wished for, is we are producing also net flow data, and from the full traffic, so from everything you see on the 16 times 10 gig live links, we produce out net flow and forward to 2 separate net flow receivers. Okay. And of course, what we also have, because that's the main goal, of course, here is we also have outputs to the NDR. And what we do currently in the first stage is we're using 4 times 10 gig. So out of the 16 times 10 gig live links, we are providing 4 times 10 gig to the ExtraHop NDR. Okay, by actually, as we said, by filtering data, by doing aggregation and things like this. And in the next couple of minutes, just go very basically through with you about each of these layers, what are points that have to be considered. Yeah, but before doing that, there's a second step, which is just now undergoing. So because first step 1 is running, is, as you can remember, we're coming with 10 gig at this moment, but actually what the solution is about is it has to handle also 100 gig. Okay, so it's not only 10 gig, so 100 gig systems are now built and up and running. And of course, customer also wants to monitor these. And we have delivered for this all the tapping. That means tapping. What is the purpose of tapping? Tapping, as we said, gives you a copy of the traffic, but remember, it's fully transparent and it's fully passive. It's completely fail-safe. So nobody would detect that it is there, and it doesn't cause any problem to the network. Just in the opposite of a span port, which is an active component of a low-level function in a switch. So what we get means we're having now the 100 gig into our box, and also what is planned is, because now it's more data we are getting, also we extend the capacity to the NDR. So originally we had 4 outputs, but now it's planned for 16 outputs. So more capacity which we feed. And that we had in mind, of course, right from the beginning. So system design is based on that upgrade, of course. So as we said before, just a short introduction about each of the components. And let me start, as I said at the beginning, the green box, maybe not so sexy what it really is, but really important is this adaptation layer 1, let's say. And actually, this is how it looks like, and consists of 2 parts, basically. So these splitters are already existing, so this tapping is existing, but we have there, and customer is in love with that, with a media converter. They say, hey, media converter is nothing special. Yes, these ones are, because they work as unidirectional amplifiers. What means unidirectional? You see here, we only have here a red line here, we only have an input, and then we have the output. So there's no talking back to the splitter here, because we don't need that. And it's also very flexible, because in front we are using SFPs, or changeable transceivers, or SFP plus, and customer can easily adapt from single mode to multi-mode, which is, at the end, this layer 1 has to work properly. Otherwise, yeah, any NDR can't do anything if layer 1 is not working. And that solution makes sure to have a very clear breakpoint between live network and monitoring. That is the whole story about. And then also we use Cubro breakout box. Breakout box is just a connector conversion from one type of connector to another type of connector. And why it's important, just that we need less ports on our solution. Okay, so we combine 4 times 10 gig into one so-called MTP connector in that picture here. This is the connector here. So it's a very clean layer 1 setup, and customer appreciate very, very much. So that saying, hey, there's a clear separation between visibility solution, aggregation, and so on, and NDR and live network. Okay, so this is this layer about. So as we said, not sexy, but in fact, thinking about really makes sense. Next layer, of course, this does a little bit more because first layer is completely transparent. We are not changing anything in the packet. So we're no filtering or something. In the next layer, we are using our packet broker. In this case, it's called 32100A, which has, it's a 32 ports of 40 gig, 100 gig. Each port can be still used in 10 gig mode because you remember from before, we need 10 gig inputs. Yes, of course, we can use the box for that as well. And key point really here is that this is based on hardware. Really hardware, a very special ASIC programmable chipset that allows everything in wire speed. And you might say, hey, wow, 32 times 100 gig. Yes, this is important because we as Kubrow need to make sure that we are not losing packets. So that we always can be sure the information that arrives at ExtraHop sensors is complete. And therefore, we're using this high performance hardware, not to be in danger of getting in an overload situation. So in detail, what the product is it has, you see left and right. On the left side, you see this more general things, of course, is non-blocking, as we said. So you can use all the ports at the same time under full load. It does the aggregation, means putting together several inputs to one output or more outputs. It does a filtering, so you can remove traffic if needed. Also does load balancing. What means load balancing? This is on the output. We have, as we have seen, we have four outputs towards ExtraHop. Of course, we want them that the utilization of these 4 ports is equal and makes sense. So, for example, keep sessions together. Yes, the box can do that. So this is the one thing, but as an engineer, what I always say is this right side. This right side is really exceptional good. So, and one thing is highlighted here, just to mention that, is these days we see very often the traffic is tunneled. Tunneled means you have a GRE tunnel on top of the packet. You have MPLS on top. You have VXLAN. We have a project also with ExtraHop here in Austria at the energy company. They have AirSpan, okay, or Cisco Fabric Path on top. But that means the information, the packet payload is hidden in the tunnel. Our box can remove the tunnel in hardware, so in full wire speed, or can filter inside the tunnel just to get access to the right information. As far as I understood, of course, ExtraHop could do the same, maybe, but this would be, how to say, would cost some performance, while we can do this in pure hardware. Okay, just to these highlights. And yes, for us we call this always overlay network. Overlay network means there's always tunnels running. Very often people don't know that, customer doesn't know, but usually it's there, particularly when I talk about fabric, spine or leaf scenarios. Okay. So the use cases we have here, remember this is the drawing, we have inputs 10 gig and then 100 gig inputs, and we have outputs. We have outputs to the NDR and to our Omnia, which does this net flow, as we said. And also what we do is we do the aggregation. That means put together information. At the same time, we multiply traffic because we have different outputs, NDR and also to the net flow generation device. Of course, we do the filtering. And why is filtering important? Because sometimes filtering means that we don't require traffic, so we filter that out. What is the benefit? Just lower the load to the NDR or to any probing system. And also important, there's regulations, there's laws, of course, and there's also sometimes company rules, which says this cannot be analyzed. So the Kubrow box is there to make sure that being compliant. And also said before, we do the load balancing. Load balancing means just to equally distribute the traffic to the NDR. Okay. So all is about is just feed only what you really need and not, not to be messed up. Okay. And last layer, as we said, is this data application, net flow generation, and also important, that was one of the key requirements of customer, data masking. Data masking meaning that we certain packets we overwrite with a predefined pattern. So that means the headers still intact, of course, so all the IP information is there, but inside we do some overwriting because to comply with the regulations. And yes, what else it does, as we said, it is our NetFlow producer, and what it consists of, this box we are using, is it consists of a front end. Front end means this is the packet broker. So all the filtering, all the tunnel termination, yes, we can do. But we have two CPUs in the box. These are ARM CPUs, high performance. Every CPU is actually connected via 100 gig, and that we call that using these higher layer features like deduplication. So we find duplicates, and duplicates can happen when you tap the same traffic twice. Then you have the same traffic twice. Sometimes the payload is the same, but maybe the header is different. Still, we can detect that. Okay, and that product we call Omnia 120. Okay, so this is the box how it would look like. You see these ARM CPUs. So there's two ARM CPUs, and in front, which is our one of the core competence we have, is the programmable silicon. That's the high-speed packet broker. Okay, and then for maximum throughput, these ARM CPUs are connected via 100 gig. So why we have the Omnia there even? Yes, of course, as we said, net flow and deduplication, these are the two main issues, just to reduce the traffic load and to produce net flow information, because customer also wants to use net flow for certain things. This is the reason. And the other point is the data masking, which we are just about to set up now, but the box is supporting. Okay, so everything we are talking about the Kubrow visibility solution is just to make the best use of the NDR and not overload it. So in summary, from my point of view, is so what we delivered is a complete visibility solution. So from layer one, actually to the packet processing for net flow generation, to deliver data to the NDR for filtering and this kind of stuff. And system design, was quite the process to, of course, guide the customer and discuss, should be very simple to operate. And just a few days ago, I got an email from customer and was again asking everything is all right. And the customer answered back, yes, Kubrow is in only one sentence. Yeah, he said, nah, Kubrow is doing what it should do. And that's the key point. So this solution we have to be transparent, filter out, should just be, yes, put it there and then concentrate on the NDR and concentrate on security and not on the visibility solution. Okay. So this is actually what the system design is based on. Of course, high performance system components we mentioned already. Yeah. So that we have this high speed hardware approach. Okay. And of course, yeah, should also mention that as I'm leading the team, we have a very good technical team, believe me. Good. Thanks. That's everything from my side.
Right. Thanks, Herbert. Very, very interesting. I'm just conscious we're just running over time, so we'll only be probably another 3 or 4 minutes, because I did want to add again a bit of context to what Herbert just described from an ExtraHop perspective, and from Eric's perspective. Actually, again a few questions just to expand. I think probably on from an ExtraHop point of view, and also what you see as the value. So I guess the first question I have: we'd seen that in the slides that the lack of visibility in the east-west corridor was one of the challenges. Why was that so important, and how do you think our combined solution helped to resolve that problem?
Yeah, so it's like most organizations, right? The main concern is still ransomware, and that's because it's really still out there. But supply chain attacks and advanced, this kind of organization, an organization in financial business is really an important thing. So, it's not just the cost of the breach, but it's also the downtime, reputation damage, the remediation costs. They all, count here. Now, why this combined solution was really important is because ExtraHop needed to have that data, right? So Kubrow provided the tabs to be able to get all that data that they wanted to investigate into one combined data feed. But before sending that to ExtraHop, right, Kubrow deduplicated that data and filtered it. So that is why the combined joint forces, right, is really important in this case.
Okay, and I know that compliance was especially important for financial organizations. And we obviously, Kubrow had to filter out some of the traffic out the data feed. Can you elaborate maybe on what that use case was in this particular environment?
Yeah, so there were two things here. First of all, for compliance point of view, they need to store packets, right? So ExtraHop is able to store packets. And this is really to prove when they get attacked exactly what happened, right? They need to produce these packets to be able to show, hey, this is what happened, we stopped them in time. The other thing is, I already told that, right? That the decryption part, being able to look inside of traffic, like TLS, like domain traffic, is really key to see what hackers are doing, because they love to hide in your encrypted traffic. Now, although really useful, for certain situations, they're not allowed to decrypt traffic, like, for instance, credit card information. So what Kubrow did for us is they filtered out that data, so we were still able to decrypt all the data, but still comply to their compliance read, which was really mandatory to do that.
Okay, and again, interesting. Can you summarize, maybe finally just summarize how this combined solution benefited the customer?
Yeah, so, and this is a funny one, right? I'm going to say it reduced the cost, which is strange if you introduce, instead of just one solution, two solutions, right? But because our sensors have a limited amount of interfaces, getting all that data into our sensors would have meant that we had to have a couple of sensors there, right? Now, by using Kubrow and combining all those different locations where we get a data feed, and we could use one sensor, but also because you guys, right, deduplicate that data for us, the amount of data we get is lower, which means that we need smaller appliances to be able to do the same. And the last part that we already covered, right, is really from a compliance point of view, that filtering that Kubrow does, right, that was really helpful for the customer to get the maximum value out of this solution, still being able to decrypt and see everything that happens in that encrypted traffic without losing the compliance in the sense of not encrypting that credit card information, which is just not allowed. And there's some other things as well. But the filtering was really key here.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Eric.
You're welcome.
Very helpful. So I guess in summary then, and obviously the purpose of the webinar today was to try to illustrate how a combined Kubrow ExtraHop solution can help you to improve network security while reducing costs. Hopefully we've shown that, and obviously we've got some of the key points in the summary there. Yeah, ExtraHop is a market leading product that provides complete network security visibility both across the north-south and east-west security corridors. And the Kubrow part is for us to provide the data feeds to remove traffic blind spots. So ExtraHop receives all of the traffic that needs to be analyzed. And we can help to build resilient architectures and regulatory compliant architectures as well. And as you mentioned there, Eric, I guess it's something people don't like to talk about too much, but in terms of reducing costs, but the reality is the combined solution, as you say, typically, does provide that, because we can aggregate and filter out unnecessary traffic. We can right size the solution technically, which helps right size it commercially, accelerate the time to benefit, and overall reduce the total cost of ownership. I mean, I've certainly seen an example of a network security deployment a number of years ago now, where we reduced the total price of a combined solution was around about 50% of the cost of ownership of a non-combined solution, if I describe it that way. So it can be significant. Obviously, it depends on use case, but it can be significant. So that was everything I was going to cover today, and obviously from a summary point of view. I know we have a number of questions now, and I apologise we're just overrunning, but I did want to get to some of those. So, Lucas, do you want to pick those up?
Yes, sure. So let me start from the first one we got, and that's one towards Eric.
Yeah.
It's about the storage and how the data is stored, and it's how do you store raw data packets in the Revelix 360, and can this be deployed also in cloud or only on premise? So how
That's a
does
good question.
that happen?
So we have two solutions. One is our SaaS solution, where it mainly lives in the cloud, and we have our on-prem solution, right? But with both solutions, the raw packets that we have are stored on what we call a trace appliance, and that appliance stays on the location. We're not going to send raw packets to the cloud. That's just not doable, right? You need a separate internet connection to be able to do that. So raw packets stay on-prem on appliances with a lot of disk space on it, right? And in both 360 and our enterprise solution, you're able to store those packets.
Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah, that makes sense to me also. Yeah, then I see there is a question about the possible throughput on the Kubrow packet brokers. Yeah, I think the one was shown was the EXA 32100A.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this has performance limitation. Yeah, but Herbert can pick that up.
6.5 terabit per second. 6.5. Okay, so the next one is 12.9
so all
terabit.
ports full load.
Yes, exactly. And just I add this 1 second only. Just recently we launched our 32 ports of 400 gig machine, also non-blocking. Okay. So there's no limitation of that. If this is hopefully answers the question.
Then there's and there's one last one maybe to Paul. Yeah, what is the main difference between us as a Kubrow against other TAP or aggregator vendors like Gigamons, Ixias, and all the others that are out there?
I mean, there's a number of things, and we have some unique capabilities across our range. NetFlow Optimizer, as I mentioned, that's a unique capability, and we have other actually CDR generation and optimization capability, which is unique for visibility technologies. So we have some unique capabilities. I think probably the key differentiator technically is that we use latest technology, which allows us capabilities that is not possible in older technology. So with the latest generation ASICs, that means that we can do more features in hardware, which means we need to deploy less CPU power, which increases our performance, reduces our footprint, and also gives us more flexibility around how we can deploy our architecture. So what it means is we can provide more advanced features across our range of products, which gives our customers more choices around how they deploy our products for both feature capability but also resilience capability. So there's a whole range of differences between our capability set, if you like, against our competitor. But I would say a lot of it would come down to because we're using latest technologies. So I think that's probably. Were there any other questions, Lucas? I think that's everything, isn't it? Any other questions?
No, that's it, at least from the questions. So if someone else has now something to ask, then please put it in the chat.
Okay.
If not, of course, we are always available. So
yeah. Well, listen, just again, apologies we overrun a little, but it was an interesting discussion, and obviously thanks very much again for your time. And if you need any other information, please let us know. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.